Hello, in this video we're going to look at how to create an MMO style character creation screen using Unreal Engine. Now I've done this using the enhanced assets for my skeletal mesh, but you can use whatever assets you like. So the techniques here are pretty universal, so they should be applicable to many types of assets that you can use. So in essence, this is what we're creating. Like we've got this character creation screen where we can determine the race, the gender, the hair options and stuff like that, and apply those changes to the skeletal mesh. This is actually a relatively long process, so I'm going to split this up into multiple videos. So in this first one, we're just basically going to look at the overview. So what that means is we're just going to have a look at the demo of what it is that we're building and cover the prerequisites before the next episode. So the next episode, we're going to look at how to create those options inside, and that can be actually pretty complicated because of the nesting, right? So for example, when you change your race or when you change your gender, your hair options will change, right? So males will have different hair options to females. So every time you make those changes, you want to then propagate the changes to your other options, right? So that's what we're going to be covering in the next episode. The one after that, we'll probably take those options and start applying them to the actual skeletal mesh. And perhaps after that, we'll start integrating it with a custom server. So that's kind of the plan here. So we'll get started with a demo. So like the general overview is captured inside this blog post, but like I say, it will have multiple blog posts as per the videos, right? So each video will have its own blog post associated to it. So let's get started with the demo. So this is essentially what we're building. So we've got ourselves a character skeletal mesh here. And the rotation I've actually covered in a different video that's also referenced in the blog post. And we can change, for example, the race. So you can see the material is changing. I didn't have a different skeletal mesh, so I'm just changing the material. But you could also change the mesh as well, right? Similar to the gender, right? So when you toggle the gender, you've got a different material and a different mesh. So then you can also change your hairstyles, and you can see the hairs changing, hair color. You can also add a beard. So for example, you can see the beard isn't changing. And when you change the hair color, it's changing both the beard and the hair. You've got different skin color options, right? And some other payloads so for example, starting class. This doesn't actually change the skeletal mesh, but potentially you want to have additional payload to pass to other places, right? So that's what we're creating, right? And you'll also want to cover things like these edge cases where, you know, if I'm on option 7, which male doesn't have, you want to reset it. But if you're on option 2, you can keep it consistent so that you come back to the same model, right? So you want to cover some of these edge cases as well. Again, that's covered in the next episode. And yeah, that's basically what we're going to be building here, right? So there's a lot of actually a lot of things going on inside, and yeah, let's get started. So in order, like the prerequisites here really is to get started with creating a map. So we're not going to look into the aesthetics, right? We're going to be focusing on like basically the information changes, right? So we're not going to be looking at the design here per se. We're just going to look at what kind of payload we need to change. So in order to get started, you want to first create a level. So go ahead, right click, select level, and give it a name such as like character creation map. You can call it whatever you like really. So double click that and you should have these world settings on the right. If you don't see it, you can click window world settings. You should see it after. And what you want to do is override essentially the game mode. And inside the game mode, you want to override the HUD class and the player controller class. So in order to do that, you want to go ahead and create those 3 files. So to create the game mode, simply right click, blueprint class, and you see game mode base. So select that and just create the other 2 classes in advance so that you can start referencing them right away. So in order to create the HUD, which is the heads up display, right click, select blueprint, select HUD, just select the HUD from here, and the player character controller. So again, blueprint class, and select the player controller, right? So give them whatever names you like, but basically inside the game mode, what you want to do is override them with the blueprints you've just created. So select the player controller over here and the HUD class over here, right? So once you've done that, you want to start populating some data. So inside the character controller, what you want to do is ensure that the mouse interface is all enabled, right? So all of these guys are enabled because by default, like for example, on third person character, you're not going to have a mouse, right? So you want to enable that stuff. And you'll want to just block the input as well, because basically in the character creation screen, you're not going to have a character, so you're not going to be moving anything or doing anything with the character, right? So you're going to be interfacing with a widget. So that's why you'll want to block that input. In order to modify the HUD, you first want to prepare a widget. So we'll create an empty widget. And by the way, you can see I went through many iterations here, right? So this is a relatively complicated process, right? And I think I found a good way to do it. So I'll share those techniques later. But one of the main reasons is, like I say, with nesting, the data became sort of explosive. In a sense that there was just so many different moving pieces. And for example, all of these actually worked, right? But I really didn't like the if statements and changing the arrays and stuff. So in this technique, we're using composite keys with maps, right? So basically you use keys with multiple pieces of data to refer to multiple options, right? And we'll cover that in the next video, right? But what you want to do for now is create a simple widget. So widget blueprint, just select a widget, give it a name that you like. So this is going to be the root component for the character creation screen. So, like customize character widget, call it whatever you like, some obvious name, right? So that you can basically reference it in the HUD. Don't worry about putting any content at this stage, right? We'll cover that in the next episode as well. But what you'll want to do is essentially add it into here. So when you open up the HUD, event begin play, create widget, and then basically select the widget that you've just created, and then add it to the viewport, right? So that's what you're going to want to do. And this actually completes all the prerequisites, because essentially now you're going to have a map. Inside a map, just make sure that you'll have a camera, and you don't need to spawn any skeletal mesh. Again, we'll cover that later. But just have a think of where it will be spawned. It doesn't really matter too much, right? Not at this stage. And again, we're not going to be focusing on aesthetics, so you're going to have like an empty map. But the idea is that you could make it look as you like, right? So I've basically used the sculpting tool, put some trees in there, put some stuff in there. And you can design it as you like, right? Use whatever assets you want. You can use sci-fi mode, you can use like this fantasy stuff, like it doesn't really matter. And that's why I don't focus on the aesthetics here, as you can design it as you like. And that's basically it for this video, right? So in the next one, we're gonna be covering how to change the different data. But yeah, any questions do ask in the comments, and basically I'll try and cover them as I go through this series, right? So like I say, this is a relatively lengthy process, so obviously any questions do raise them and I will try and answer them. So yeah, best of luck, and I'll see you in the next episode. See ya.